Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I have some just absolutely amazing experiences to share with you. Update on Brad, and, well, you'll see. Before we get into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share this video. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Okay, guys, quick update. Brad had shared an experience with me that he had heard about 3 weeks ago. He had a little bit of a health issue to deal with, and obviously people have lives. I was supposed to be in touch with him last night to record the interview, but life does come up, unfortunately. We are connecting tomorrow night, Wednesday night, tomorrow night, to share this crazy experience. I just am going to give you a quick heads up on it. It happened where his last experience happened, where he ran into what we believe to be a government agent, where the helicopter had flown over. Put it this way, dogmen can be killed. It's a pretty intense experience, and wow, you know, it is definitely a Brad encounter, but it didn't happen to Brad. Brad just happened to hear it. So let's get into today's upload. Also, like I said, this week, I was going to do the interview with Brad Monday, tomorrow, today, Tuesday. I might, about an 80% chance, go up to where Tom Mesick disappeared at night, 7, 8 o'clock at night, when it's just starting to get dark. See what we can see up there. Spend a little time. I'm not going deep. I will go as deep as I feel comfortable, and do a little bit of looking around, look-see. I might walk up the wash, and I might walk up to where the trees are bent at that odd angle. It all depends on how I feel. I mean, we are talking about a place where a man disappeared and was never seen again on November 15th, 2015. Ironically enough, my daughter, Isabel, was born November 15th, 2007, but it's just kind of strange that I am obsessed with a case and my daughter was born on the same day. Anyway, let's get into today's experiences. The first experience I'm going to share, I actually did talk to Brad last night, but he wanted to make sure that he had it, the experience that he heard, word for word. He wanted to sit down and remember the exact conversation of how he heard it. He didn't experience it. So we talked for a little bit, and I shared quickly an encounter that blew me away. Because we were talking about the military and we were talking about their tactics against certain creatures. And I quickly gave him a synopsis of this experience, and I probably said the wrong word, but anyway, I said, "Do you not remember this?" And he said, "I don't remember it. Send me the link." And I said, "I'll do one better for you, buddy. I'll put an upload together around that encounter." So that's what we're doing right now. I'm a member of the United States Army, and I have a personal experience to share that comes from my deployment to Afghanistan. Due to the nature of my service, I cannot and will not share anything that will breach any level of OPSEC or InfoSec in any way, shape, or form, or reveal any details that will or can be construed as such to compromise any operations myself or other members of the United States military conduct on a daily basis. That being stated, here's my experience. I'm a United States Army Infantry Squad Leader, non-commissioned officer with 10 years of service. And I have 12 soldiers under my command in my squad, 10 soldiers and 2 non-commissioned officer team leaders. My soldiers are ranked E3 to E4 with 18 months of experience at the very least, with my team leaders having 4 to 5 years of experience, respectively. All of us have at least had one combat deployment together, with the senior of my soldiers having 2. All of us have enough experience in our service that we are absolutely confident in our abilities and skills as infantry soldiers, and know what to do and how to do it, given any and all combat situations we encounter. So, when we are given a mission as a squad separate from our platoon, we did not really give it any thought to the nature of the orders or fact we would be a significant distance from our platoon or any ground assistance whatsoever separate from CAS or artillery we could call upon and other assets available. I received the mission, issued the warno, made a plan, initiated movement, gathered recon, and completed the plan. I issued the apport, and we Oscar mic'd. All of the making and appearance of the usual and routine mission, something we did daily and completed daily. And then we reached the objective, and it all went to what I can only describe as hellish, given form. We had vehicles that were specifically designed for being explosive resistant and armored enough to give us an edge in surviving a multitude of situations we would come across. It was dark, and we had our night vision goggles on, approaching a small village, 7 buildings under the cover of darkness. Being as quiet as possible, ready for anything, we entered and cleared house after house. We found bodies, lots of bodies. So many it was hard to enter any dwelling without stepping on them. And I have never in my 10 years seen anything as disturbing or as shocking as the condition these bodies were in. And the sheer number was numbing to behold. Some looked as if they had been ripped or torn in half. That is no mistake in typing or description. I literally mean torn or ripped by sheer brute strength. Some looked crushed as if a ton or more of weight was slammed onto them. And I mean pulped. I have run other human beings over with a 6-ton vehicle, and I know crushed when I see it. And others looked as I would expect if I were to eat a piece of raw meat with my teeth, if I had teeth like a shark or some sort of carnivore, like something had taken a big chunk off of them and kept going, and the rest looked like what I would imagine some sort of mythical monster or something with claws and teeth or sharp anything would have gone through them, like so much defenseless flesh all at once. We finally reached the end of the village and met something I can only describe as the closest to demonic as human language can make it, and it was terrifying. Thinking about it as I type this gives me chills, makes my heart feel like it will burst through my chest, and that at any moment this thing will burst from somewhere to do unspeakable things to me before it kills me, ripping me apart like a rag doll full of blood and flesh. I still have nightmares about it. First vehicle opened up on it with a 50 cal APT, and he was going cyclic. Next thing I know, I see a 6-ton armored vehicle that can take up to 80 pounds of explosive force and come back rolling. Literally fly, not roll, not flip, fly. It landed in the middle of the frickin' village in pieces. 6 damn tons of armor flew 700 meters. My vehicle was next, and I have never cycled an automatic grenade launcher so fast in my whole career. I was linking belt after belt after belt, and I was unjamming it almost as fast as it was jamming. I was screaming my head off on the radio at the same time, trying to get a hold of my other vehicle, calling CAS or artillery, and ordered my squad to shoot this thing with every weapon we had, even though I know for a fact we were all doing so anyway. And I am still screaming. I can hear screaming and gunfire. That sounds like millions of voices screaming with us, with explosions and tearing metal. Absolute chaos is in control here. And I'm screaming, crying, praying. But then the craziest thing I have ever seen happened. Everything went absolutely silent. No sound, no voices, no gunfire, no explosions, nothing. The world went mute. And after that, everything slowly came back. My alpha team leader, who climbed up to me, had to slap me hard to snap me out of this hell zone I was in. My best guess is shock, but unlike anything I had ever had, experienced or watched. It took hours for me to get it together and start attempting to control the situation, get comms with Lieutenant, and come to grips. First priority was the first vehicle. We couldn't raise them on our comms, so I sent 2 to go see if they were alive and needed medical attention. Then I realized we didn't get the BDA on the thing we had just unloaded on. I directed my driver to get closer to the area, and I noticed something right off the bat. There was damage everywhere, except for one spot. And that spot was untouched and pristine, like it had never been subject to all the firepower we had directed at it. Not a single impact. There was no sign of that thing anywhere, not even a footprint. I'd been deployed 7 times in 10 years, and never have I seen anyone or anything walk away from that much firepower, ever. I know for a fact that no human on this earth could. My 5 soldiers in the first vehicle lived miraculously due to the cab being reinforced, but suffered severe blunt force trauma from the impact. Enough that all 5 in that vehicle were immediately given medical discharge and 100% disability a few months later. My other soldiers are all receiving the best psychological care possible. I'm undergoing psychological evaluation as well, due to the report I gave to the command. The treatment given to me and my squad is no surprise. However, the way my report of the incident was handled and what happened after is very confusing and very frustrating. No more about this has been mentioned or acknowledged again. I don't care if someone believes me or not anymore, as every time I am asked about it and I answer, I am met with reactions of disbelief or pity and sympathy for my damaged mental state. I'm even attempting to be cleared to continue my service, and am forced to lie to my counselors and therapists about the progress and recovery from the experience. I'm still haunted by the incident, and it still gives me a racing heart just thinking about it. I am hoping that this will be shared. Even if you don't, thank you anyway. So I shared that encounter about a year ago. I couldn't find the link to link it to Brad. I went through a bunch of my encounters, but I said, you know what? I'm just gonna re-narrate it quick for Brad. Brad and I were talking about how these creatures can be stopped. Essentially they can be. And then I said, yeah, but do you remember this experience? And he said, no. And that really bothers me because, if we can't rely on our firepower, what can we rely upon? And I said, And he said, both at the same time, almost exactly, prayer. With that, with whatever that was, demonic, whatever, prayer did work. Prayer really did work on that one. But when civilians like us, even former military that are hiking, everyone should be when in the woods, when in the forests, have a form of protection. I truly believe that. Prayer does work. Obviously, I'm a firm believer of it. My dad came back from palliative care. The man was literally, we came to terms with him dying. Prayer works. But if you are in the woods and you have a 400 or 500 pound Sasquatch, a 400 pound Dogman running at you, and we know they die, I would really rely on my firearm quicker than in Our Father. Also, I think that even if my Our Father did work and it turned around and walked away, which I've heard experiences of that happening, I'm not saying it doesn't, but what happens if I'm in the woods and a mountain lion or a bear comes at me? Well, prayer isn't going to work. I'm going to need something to protect myself. So please, everyone, hiking, camping, fishing, whatever, go with a firearm. Protect yourself. Always remember, please, we are not guests in these woods. These woods are ours as well. We should have a tactical advantage too. They do. Next encounter. To start off, I was not ever a firm believer in the paranormal, but I love listening to strange encounters. After this, I can no doubt believe in things that I cannot be explained, and this is my bone-chilling experience. This experience happened in 2020 during the pandemic. As everyone knows, the world shut down and everyone and everything was on lockdown. As for me, I got a lot of time to practice what I love, and that's baseball. I live in Montana, close to Glacier National Park. I was 17 at the time. And to put it into perspective, I'm 6'4", have a good build, but I'm a gentle giant. And I get paranoid easily. I know, big guy, right? That gets scared easily? Yep, that's me. We have a huge backyard, 78 acres of dense forest, and in those acres there is a shooting range, ATV trails, and a small creek. So I'm not a stranger to being outside and exploring the woods. One day, while around 4-ish, I was out riding my four-wheeler on one of our made trails. I saw something dart from the corner of my eye as I turned around the bend. I slowed my ATV down and looked in the direction of where the movement was that I had seen. Then I noticed that the only sound I heard was my ATV. So, me being a curious fellow, I turned off my four-wheeler and listened as it was dead quiet. I swear the forest was on mute, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps crunching the leaves and sticks. These were slow, heavy footsteps, but it was purposely trying to be quiet. No later than 5 seconds after I turned off my four-wheeler, the steps stopped, and growing up in the outdoors and in the woods, when it goes dead silent, that not even bugs are to be heard, that means something is on the prowl. My mind started to race as I realized there was a predator around here somewhere and that I needed to leave because there are bear in my area. We have seen plenty of bear on our property, and I wasn't in the mood with dealing with one. Right as I'm about to turn the key to the four-wheeler and start it up, I heard a singular tongue click sound, as if whatever it was trying to get my attention. Hell no, I muttered as I turned the key and sped out of there as fast as the four-wheeler could go. Sadly, that was the beginning of my experience. I sped home and ran straight inside and told my mom, who was cooking dinner at the time. She paused and looked at me with the most confused look ever. I knew she didn't believe me, but I asked what could be out there because it was no bear. No bear makes a clicking sound and walks on what sounded like 2 feet. My mom brushed it off and said maybe you're just imagining something, or maybe it was an exhausted pop from your ATV. Yeah, I guess maybe, I said, even though I knew it was not. But a couple of days later, I forgot about the entire thing. A couple of weeks went by without any problems until one day, I was outside with my German Shepherd, Rusty, playing baseball with him. It was around dusk. I would hit the baseball into the woods and he would go fetch it and bring it back to me. On one of these hits, he ran for the ball, then just stopped dead in his tracks and stared into the woods, his ears twitching. I was confused at his sudden behavior, so I called his name 4 times and he didn't budge. He just stood there staring at something in the woods. Then, here's where it got a little crazy. He suddenly backs up slowly and starts growling, baring his teeth and snarling, going berserk. He's a family dog that has been with us for many years, and not once has he ever acted like this. My mind is panicked because I'm like, oh crap, he's pissed off a bear. So I start running over to him, making really loud noises to see if I could scare this bear off or whatever. And that's when it jumps out at Rusty. I was about 30 feet from Rusty at this point and dumbfounded. This creature was like another German Shepherd, but 2 or 3 times its size. It was dark brown. It had the head of a German Shepherd, but it had, bloodshot eyes glaring at me. Its legs were bent backward. It had human hands with claws that looked like daggers. It stood about 6 feet tall, and I noticed that it was extremely skinny, almost malnourished. Instantly, I knew from past listings of Dogman experiences and such. It completely turned its attention from Rusty to me and started growling at me and slowly crept my way. My heart hit rock bottom and my whole body went blank. My instincts screamed at me to run, and suddenly had the biggest adrenaline boost ever. But I was not about to let my dog get absolutely shredded to pieces. I have heard the damage that these dogmen and other creatures can do to animals and deer. Then it charged at me, snarling. It must have covered 15 feet in 2 steps. This thing had such rage and hatred. Then out of pure adrenaline, I swung my metal baseball bat, still in hand, as hard as I could. Swing and connected with this thing's face. Let me tell you, when I hit that dogman or werewolf thingy in the face, I knew I racked up something in its head. It was a loud clunk as it staggered backward and almost fell over. Then Rusty attacked, bit its arms, and let out a small howl. It smacked Rusty and sent him flying maybe 10 feet in the opposite direction. Seeing Rusty on the ground, I had another adrenaline boost, this time filled with anger also, and I was once again swinging my bat at this thing with a noticeable dent in it against its face, and it connected even harder than the last one. This time, there was another clink and a small crack. I looked at its face and noticed that its jaw was crooked. I had broken that damn thing's jaw. It got knocked to the side, and it tried to snarl at me again, but this time a weird sound came out of its mouth. Best way to describe it, it was a drunk growl. It even seemed surprised that it sounded different. It kind of paused and had this humanoid look of confusion on its face as it shook its head, realizing the damage. Then its bloodshot eyes stared into my soul, and I saw the rage only build inside of this monster. I knew my metal bat was no match for it anymore. I raised it up again to swing, but thank the heavens above, there was a gunshot, and this beast was hit with a .30 caliber round from my dad's custom hunting rifle. I snapped my head back toward the house to see my mom with the rifle in her hands, aiming another round as she screamed, "Get back!" as she unloaded another round, this time hitting it in the leg as it hollowed a pained, forced howl. As it turned around to run back into the woods, I sprint over to Rusty, picking up my dog and sprinting back to the house. My mom still scanning the tree line and backing up into the house with me. We go inside and lock all the doors and windows as she runs up to me, hugging and kissing my face and praising the Lord, and says she saw the whole thing and ran and grabbed my dad's rifle out of the gun safe and ran outside just in time to shoot at it. She then turned to Rusty and said I examined him while she kept watching the tree line and had the gun at the ready. Rusty had no major damage, a cut on his shoulder, and that was about it. We called the police and told them everything about what had happened when they arrived. I broke down, letting all my emotions flow freely, and to our surprise, they said they've been getting calls about this weird, tall, skinny dog-like creature that's been running around. We called Dad and explained the whole thing. He left work early and came home. We then stayed at a relative's place for a while and ended up selling that house, which was honestly really sad, but it was the right thing to do. We moved closer to a town because of our experience. I am now positive that things exist that we don't understand, and everyone please be careful if you live next to the woods. Some things are in there, are not bare, and will not hesitate to end you. Today's third experience, we're going to jump back into the military. I was an investigator with CID from 2004 to 9 and served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Most of my work was related to various schemes, bribery, money laundering, etc., by enlisted personnel. In 2005, I was informed that I would be embedded with the Army Infantry Unit in a mountainous region in Iraqi Kurdistan, northeast Iraq. Once I reached my assigned location, we were briefed on strange activity that occurred in a particular area, just a few miles from the Iranian border. We started to investigate by reading reports that came from a few local villagers and Kurdish military who stated that people were being hunted in the mountains by an unknown creature. One man told me that the locals call it a ghoul. He had never seen it, but it was described as a tall, man-like creature with long arms and legs that fed on human flesh. I reported the information I gathered to my superiors after returning to the unit headquarters. A few days later, I was ordered to return to the area of the strange activity and investigate further. An infantry squad with a squad leader was assigned to accompany me. The general consensus was that it was likely a soldier who left his post, went AWOL, and went crazy and started causing problems. Armed conflict can induce the worst in people to surface. If this was the case and the individual was killing non-combatants, our job would be formidable. After a few days of surveillance and searching, we had no clue of what we were dealing with. If this was indeed a soldier or another civilian, man, we would have seen him or gathered some evidence. I was starting to believe that this was a wild goose chase, but the villagers were adamant about something hunting them. One evening, the squad leader and I were going over a report when we were alarmed by this god-awful scream that came from the direction of the mountain pass that we had just searched a few hours before. A few local people who had been outside quickly made their way home. It was obvious that they heard the scream as well. Within an hour, the squad and I were slowly entering the pass. It was night, but the moon was very bright, so we were able to see around a bit. We searched that entire area for several hours using night vision and high-intensity lights. We found nothing. Not a footprint or a remnant of any creature fitting this description. I have always wondered what we heard that night. I have asked a few people for their opinion, but with little satisfaction. There were many strange incidents in Iraq that were just never made the light of day. I heard of some, but I am positive most were just filed away. Today's fourth experience. This experience is not mine, but was told to me by a Marine doing combat tours in Afghanistan. For the sake of his own job and security clearance, he has asked that I not give any names and never mention the region they were operating in. From my understanding, the individuals who were with him during this encounter were from a task force operating under orders from the CIA. Beyond that, I was told nothing. Let's just refer to him as James. Anyway, here's the experience. During patrol checking on some local farmers, James's unit was made aware of a deadly being living in a cave system near the farms. When pushed for more info, the locals were only willing to say that this being was stealing from their farms and had killed a few people who had made the mistake of trying to protect their livelihood from it. Convinced the locals were being harassed by a group of Taliban fighters, half of James's unit was sent out to investigate and either arrest or kill the hostile forces in the area. So with a few Humvees armed with M2 machine guns, they went out to the cave where this mysterious being supposedly lived. Upon arrival, they noticed nothing of interest. There was signs that something was living in the cave, and the soldiers found animal bones scattered around the entry. Not wanting to risk his entire unit fighting in a cave that the enemy would have known well, James sent two of his fastest Marines to investigate. The two men just gave the others a cocky grin and a thumbs up before disappearing into the darkness beyond the mouth of the cave. For 10 minutes, there was nothing, not a single sound inside or out that cave, other than idle chatter from bored Marines. Then sound erupted from the cave. Shooting, shouting, screaming. In a matter of seconds, the two men emerged from the cave in a full run and zipped past the teammates, one of them shouting, "Run, just run!" But, like the hard-ass special force operators they were, the other soldiers stood their ground only to see a massive thing emerge from the cave. This thing stood nearly 10 feet tall with leathery skin and red hair. In one of its massive hands was a log that it began waving at the soldiers in a very obvious, threatening manner. Shocked but not panicked, James commanded his men to shoot the MFer, and the 12 Marines opened fire, but their bullets seemed to have little effect other than just pissing it off. Finally, in desperation, one of them fired a grenade launcher at this thing, blowing out a massive chunk, exposing a small portion of rib and ripping most of the skin and muscle. The creature retreated into the cave, and the soldiers decided the best thing to do was head back to the village and report to the rest of their unit. Clearly, this was more than a few Taliban militants. Even with a gaping wound, this creature was too terrifying for Marines to willingly walk into that cave. So they headed back and reported to their CO, and of course, their boss did not believe them and demanded to see proof. So that night they drove him out to the cave and showed him some of the shredded flesh that had been blown off with the grenade launcher. From there, the report went up the chain, and nobody knows what was done about this creature. I wish he would have told me more. From what I managed to find out on my own, accounts like this are not uncommon in that part of the Middle East. Of course, since all of these reports were word-of-mouth stories, I don't know how factual they were, or if they were being exaggerated. Now, here's something I want to bring up. And I've often wondered this. Now, we all know that the Middle East has just this kind of aura of ancientness. Obviously, there are ancient cities there and such. And a lot of kind of evil myths of ghouls, giants, other kind of monsters chimera and such. And maybe it's because biblical events happened in the area. Of course, people are immediately going to say that. But here's something interesting is I think about 7-8 years ago, there was an ancient city that was unearthed in Turkey, in Denizli, 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 I believe it's pronounced. And supposedly it is the gateway to hell. Now, whether that be the case or not, maybe that's a large reason why there are so many strange creatures and strange things being seen in that area of the world. I don't know. I'm not a biblical scholar, a biblical expert, an archaeologist, any of that. I just know what I read and I theorize about certain things, you know. But I think it's interesting that this ancient city was unearthed 7-8 years ago. And supposedly it is the gateway to hell. Iran and Iraq border Turkey. It's just an idea, you know. Like I said, I'm no expert at anything. Today's next encounter. I was standing post on a small 8-man patrol base at around 2 a.m. Post consists of 4 plywood walls, bulletproof glass, and sandbags. I'd been up for 24 hours at this point and was starting to hallucinate through my night vision goggles, mildly seeing school buses and the like. All of a sudden, bang. I first thought it was a round hitting the bulletproof glass, realized about a second later that it was a rock. Immediately on high alert, adrenaline flowing. I scan the area with mini thermals and get no heat signature anywhere. Strange part was that we had double-stacked razor wire about 30 meters out from the post, and it was all open ground for about 30 meters past that. So any rock throw would have been amazing. I called up to the COC and had them use the big thermal camera on the stick to scan the area in case I missed something, and they got nothing. At this point, I am freaking out, thinking there's someone out there that we can't see, but they can see us. 10-15 minutes go by, and I start to relax a little, thinking maybe a bird flew into the glass or something like that. All of a sudden, bang! Again, this time it sounded 2 times louder, and I get the feeling of pure terror and feel adrenaline flush through my body. I've got my rifle at the ready, PEQ laser on, looking harder than I ever looked before at every piece of micro-terrain that a human could be hiding behind, and cannot see anything. I'm freaked. Still don't know to this day what it was, but it scared the hell out of me. Second experience, still in the Helmand province, but a different, bigger patrol base, 13-man Afghan National Army platoon, around 12 at night. This patrol base had gravel lining the whole grounds to keep the dust down. It was poorly built defensive position with blind spots everywhere. I was 6 hours into an 8-hour shift when I heard some gravel crunching just below my post, which was about 10 feet back inside the wire's blind spot. Very unusual because we had an early morning patrol and everyone but myself, the other post stander, and the one guy on the radio watch in the COC was sleeping. I call out, "Who is that?" The crunching stops and I get no response. I used my radio to call the COC and asked if he was walking about. He tells me no, so I ask him to come check this out and make sure to tell him to be careful coming around that corner and have him keep his rifle up, weapon light on, and pop the corner. As I see him walking out of the COC, the gravel crunching sound picks up, but this time rapidly, like someone's running. Once again, high alert adrenaline flows hardcore. I'm thinking we've got somebody inside the wire, so I start yelling, "Stop or I will shoot," in Pashto or Afghan. The sound stops and my radio watch pops, the corner ready to shoot, and nothing. There's nothing there. So once again, I am freaked. He chalks it up to me being paranoid and lacking sleep, but I am not sure. An hour later, it happens again, almost exactly the same way with nothing being there. I have the radio watch. I wake up my buddy and he sends me a post with me for the last hour, which passes without incident. I still have no clue what it was. A kid inside the wire somehow? A cat? A dog? A ghost? Who knows? All I know is I have never been more scared than those two incidences. All right, guys. So you can't talk about the Middle East and the military without the Kandahar giant popping up. You know, it kind of goes hand in hand. I do believe that the military was hunting them down. Actually, there's a video I did talking about when supposedly the military was searching for the Taliban and using Moabs, that supposedly they were using the Moabs to blow the hell out of these dens where these giants lived. Not the Taliban, but the giants. And I found it kind of funny that, you know, Moab, and they were using Moabs. Now, Moab or Moabites, which are the people, are like a neighbor of Israel. I think it's in Palestine, modern day Palestine, Moab was. But it's just interesting. Mother of all bombs is the acronym for the Moab bomb, yet we're using this very powerful weapon to hunt giants. Supposedly. I don't know if it's true. I wasn't there. But the government does do some wild and crazy things, and always have a cover-up story to go along with it, don't they? Anyway, can't talk about Afghanistan or the Middle East without the giant, can we? My brother, a retired United States Army lieutenant colonel, told me that when he retired and was working for the VA, a retired service member at the VA confirmed that a 15-foot tall red-haired giant. The Army tried to conceal the incident, but could not, as over 100 people had seen the giant, both before it was killed and later brought back to Bagram Air Force Base. The creature's skin was so thick that bullets seemed not to be able to penetrate it. They shot it in the face and head. That is how they finally killed it. The first Army troop that encountered it were all killed by the creature, with their gear left untouched on the ground. The bones were of some of the soldiers in the first detachment. Some were devoured. After they killed the giant, the Army sent in a helicopter to pick it up and fly it back to base. The pallet used to place the giant on was only about 12 feet long, so they had to put the body on the pallet in a fetal position in order for it to fit. They were also concerned about its weight, and if it was too heavy to lift and fly away with it. Many people and soldiers at the airfield saw it. The Army also found a number of grave sites which had other giants buried in them from long ago. One of the skeletons was supposedly sent to the Smithsonian Museum in D.C., where it is still stored. My brother also knows about Sasquatch encounters at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and Fort Lewis, Washington. There was also a battle that occurred between Special Unit Special Army unit from Fort Belvoir, Virginia, that they hunted and killed 7 Bigfoot that were killing and devouring people. I was a United States officer for the United States Air Force and worked in the intelligence community. I'm aware of some UFO incidents not exposed or made public, and about the Black Project that recovers crashed UFOs. Well, there you have it, folks. Today's upload, I hope that you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. How about that encounter? Doing the old Dodgers stance, which the Dodgers are number 1 in the National League for the West. Just had to point that out. Sorry. Anyway, just cracking a Dogman with a bat. I guess, adrenaline does do some crazy things. I've had experiences with a guy changing his car tire on the side of the road in some, far off backwoods part of the state. And out comes a Dogman, and he literally, it kind of cuts him off from his car, and the only thing he could do is chuck the tire iron at this thing, and it hit it in its head, and it gave him enough time to get to his car and get to safety. So with that, guys, I want to thank you all for supporting this channel. It is your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and honestly what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free, simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.